Hey everyone, and welcome to Whiskey Creek Hare Scramble, Custer Michigan. Today we're going to be riding a Hare Scramble together. It's my second Hare Scramble of the year. I took about 2 years off from Hare Scrambling. Before that, I've been racing for about 6 years, and I just got kind of burned out. But last year I started getting the itch again, and decided that 2023 I'd get back into it. So welcome along for the ride. I'm a 40 plus B-Class rider, and like I said, been riding about 10 years, and the Hare Scrambles altogether I've been riding since I was young, probably 8 or 9 years of age, various dirt bikes and types of riding. So you notice that each of the rows are taken off in front of me. They're 1 minute apart. Those are different classes, usually the fastest riders in the very front. And then as you go back in the rows, there's basically slower riders. And we go. And so you notice that these guys are going to get hung up on this log here. I showed up a couple minutes late for the lineup, and fortunately the left hand side of the track was all occupied, so I got stuck on the right hand side. So I knew pretty clean that I had to back off in order not to get stuck in that little group of people. So for those of you who are not quite sure what a Hare Scramble is, basically think of like a rabbit, like a hare. They run in between objects to get away from their whatever animal might be chasing them, a wolf, a dog, skunk, I don't know. Long story short, basically a Hare Scramble is similar. Very tight in areas, and basically as a dirt bike rider, you got to navigate your way through trees, stumps, all sorts of little things that may basically throw you off the bike. This first lap's actually rather single file, because everyone is just trying to find their way, and there's really no opportunity to pass at this point. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I believe this loop was about 7 miles long. I think a general Hare Scramble is anywhere from 6 to 10 miles, and it's always a loop. And within that loop, there's trails, different obstacles that you may want to go through. A lot of times they'll have like an enduro section, which could be rocks and tires and logs and things that you got to climb over. It's more technical. And then there's a bypass section, which is generally a little bit longer. There's a time penalty for going through that because it takes longer to get through it. But generally all skill levels can get through the bypass. As far as the conditions today, I would say I do it perfect. As you can see, it's sandy, but underneath the sand is more or less moist, dark sand. And a lot of great traction. Not a lot of dust today, although I will have to admit, for a few days afterwards I was coughing up some black dust, because you breathe that stuff, and there's really no way to avoid it. So get kind of a sore throat for a couple days, but it's kind of typical. A little bit of a hang up here. I'm not sure if somebody stalled out or maybe they fell over. Get a little stressful in those environments because you got people behind you that just want to pass you, and the longer you're sitting there, the more buildup there is behind you. The ultimate goal is to create space in between yourself and the people behind you, and you do that by going faster. So I don't know if I mentioned this earlier in the intro, But this year I decided to get a new bike. Been riding my other bike. I had a KTM 300 XCW, and rode that quite a bit through various Hare Scrambles and Enduros in the past 7 years or so. And I think it was just time. Kind of get into something newer. So I went into a 4-stroke this time around. Decided to purchase a 2023, and it was a KTM XCF 450. And I was a little reluctant because, generally I've heard that, the bikes feel heavier and such. But I really, really like the power. I think what I like about the 450 most is I'm not always hitting my back brake to slow down, because the engines are a little bit more, they're kind of like an engine brake in a way. You let off the gas and it'll slow you down. So you use the throttle to slow you down too. But when you peg the throttle, it sure does move like hell. As far as the bike setup goes, the only thing really aftermarket on is the plastic. I wanted to do something different, so I put all white plastic on it, and found some cool graphics, and kind of rolled with that. Beyond that, it's all stock. Suspension, everything feels great. It does have an air fork, which is new to me. I haven't really noticed much of a difference. My understanding is you don't need to add a spring to kind of match your weight, because the air bladder kind of handles that for you. I'm not real technical in the area, but that's my understanding. The thing that's super cool about Whiskey Creek, though, is all the elevation changes. The GoPro doesn't really do a whole lot of justice, but a lot of these hills are up and down 30 degrees. Just a lot of fun. I have to say this is probably one of my most favorite Hare Scrambles because of all the elevation changes. As the race began going on, though, I think in particular a lot of the younger riders started having difficulty with, the roots getting kind of chewed out. The earth would get chewed out beneath the roots, and they get hung up on it, and they struggled with getting through that type of stuff. Kind of my advice to the riders who struggle with getting over obstacles is, momentum's everything. Momentum and clutch. So that'll go a long way in getting you through some tricky areas. So I think as it stands, my race was a little over 3 hours long on this one. Unfortunately, the GoPro, after about an hour, went dead. And by the time I clipped out, the beginning of the race and everything else, I think it came down to about 42 minutes for the video length. I really wish there was a way that I could capture the entire race without stopping and swapping out a battery. But generally, that's one thing I try not to do in any race is ever stop. Because a few seconds will win or lose a race, and you'll see a lot of the riders, their lap times are actually within a few seconds of each other. So it's all about consistency. When you stop, that really kind of reduces your success rate and actually completing an overall good position. So you can see here now we're starting to get a little bit more distance between us. I don't have anybody really behind me at the moment. So it's kind of interesting. One thing I noticed is, as I go back and I watch these videos, and I start kind of editing them and such, I realize I need to rev up my engine more because that'll make me go faster. I know that sounds, easier said than done, but sometimes when you're in these areas and it's kind of technical, and you just don't want to fall or anything like that. You kind of, hang back a little bit on the throttle, but it's amazing how much you can catch up to somebody just by, holding the throttle in a kind of like a short straightaway, for example. You can reel them in real quick. So here I kind of shot myself in the foot. I thought these guys were going to get hung up and just stuck there, so I thought I'd go around them, but that's okay, I'll catch them. Hopefully in my next video you'll see the engine revving quite a bit more. But again, I'm still just getting used to the 450. Now we're starting to get a little bit more speed. A little bit of an uphill right here. Yeah, so here's the thing. You notice how these guys are all getting kind of hung up on each other? That's quite common in Hare Scramble because, the person in front has nowhere to go. They may be reluctant to give up their spot, in the race. But generally it's good etiquette if you have a couple guys behind you that are, come up pretty quickly, just to pull over. You can even just keep moving, but just pull over and let them swing by you. 'Cause at the end of the day, if they're faster than you, you're really just holding them back, and the ideal thing is just to let them, continue at their own pace, because they're faster than you. That was a pretty steep little valley right there. First time I went through it, I thought I was going to flip over forward, but it really wasn't that bad. It just kind of went down into like a V, and I thought, oh, gosh, what if my front tire just doesn't roll out of there? Whoop, there over I go. There we go. Kind of rev up that engine a little bit. I gotta make a habit of doing more of that. believe up here is our first hill climb. So this is a kind of example of like an enduro area and a bypass. We're actually going up the more complicated area. This is an area where there was a lot of rocks. This was really steep. I barely made it up it without my bike flipping over backwards. But the subsequent laps, I actually took the left-hand side and found a nice line going up, and was able to actually, save quite a bit of time. The bypass added a few seconds, but I think for that lap, it was probably about the same as what I just experienced. So on a side note, I raced Battle Creek was it last month or earlier this month? Really great race. Conditions were perfect. Leading up to it, we had quite a bit of rain, so I was a little concerned. The morning of, we had gotten a little bit of rain, but the folks who coordinated the race said it right. They said after about a lap, everything will become tacky and dry up, and it did. Ended up being a wonderful race. Historically, I've always had kind of a bad luck at Battle Creek. Don't know why, but either get really hot there. Heck, back in 2018, my bike straight out stalled out in the middle of the woods. My magneto, what creates the spark, had actually went bad, and I was stuck out there for about an hour and a half after the race was done until the sweeper came and threw my bike on his mule. But historically, Battle Creek has been a nemesis for me, but I was, fairly happy. I finished 11th place on the B-Class. Not bad for, just kind of getting back into it. So Mark, this is a perfect opportunity to rev that engine and get up to these guys, but what do? You just keep your distance, I guess. So sometimes it's good to actually go back and watch these videos because you can kind of see what you're doing in the moment that could maybe be improved. A lot of times you're just trying to basically keep your energy and not make mistakes that'll make you fall or run into stuff. Especially in the first lap, you just get an idea where everything is. Could be something as simple as a small tree that's crossed on, at a 45 degree in the trail that you hit, and those can really throw you off. They throw you off the trail. You kick your back end over, make your front end slide out. Do a face plant. By the second lap, trail's pretty well cut in. And you got kind of a mental image of where everything is and kind of what to expect. One thing I was really surprised on in this track, besides the roots, kind of getting gutted out, the tree roots that go across the trail, for the most part, there were no major ruts in the corners or anything. Those conditions were perfect. Alright, we're going to give it a little bit of gas now. Kind of get in the habit of that. So one thing I didn't mention is on the back of everyone's helmet is the row number. which is basically the class that you take off in. For my class, it was row number 8. A lot of times, that's the only way that you can identify your the people that you're competing against out there is based on the row number that's on their helmet. So a lot of times, you know, if you see somebody in front of you with the same row number, you want to try to get by them because that's how you win the race. Okay, so I've been chasing this fella for a minute, but I hear somebody coming up behind me rather quickly. Yeah, you can hear him. He's yelling at me to move. He wants to get by. Here he goes. Looks like we're coming back into camp here. Yep, there we go. So Whiskey Creek is actually a campground. Pretty cool place. They have camping, they have like a lodge, the store, and all that cool stuff. And apparently they're ATV friendly. Okay, so we're starting to get near the kind of the finish line. It's far from finish at this point. We're not even through the first lap, but scoring, I guess, is probably better said. Scoring's where you go through. They got a computer, and each of our helmets, they have a transponder on it. That transponder has a kind of unique identifier that's registered to that rider, and when the rider goes through scoring, it records their lap time, and then does that for every rider, and that's how they determine overall scoring. In the first lap, I came in, I believe it was at 11th position. Laps 2 and 3, I managed to get down to the 5th position, and then all the way down to 3rd place. And then, oh, look at that, he cut me off, and he can't move fast enough. Let's go. Feel kind of bad for yelling at him, but hey, timing's everything. Yeah, so I was pretty happy with this race overall. Like I said, I made it all the way to 3rd position, but by the 5th and 6th lap, I started getting pretty exhausted, and I fell back to 5th place overall. But I received that. I thought that was pretty good. That was actually my goal for the day, is 5th place. And, you know, really, it's not really about winning. It's just about, I mean, it's about winning, let's be honest. But at the end of the day, it's really just about being out here and saying you did it. It's, you know, it's kind of brutal to do this for 3 hours straight in the heat, with, you know, 2 quarts of liquid in your camel backpack, and you know, seems like a lot of liquid, but man, it goes really fast when you're just exhausted. Alright, and we are approaching scoring. Lap number 1. Now here's a cool thing. If you were to hang a left here, they had some gnarly enduro section. I actually did that on my 2nd lap. Big tractor tires that you know, you could easily get stuck in. Logs that were kind of in close proximity of each other, to where, you know, if you didn't have any speed going over them, you might just get stuck in there. Back tires. I was plowed through that tree. And then the rocks and boulders. So it was pretty cool. I think, actually, speaking of it, I think one of the reasons why I came up in my positions on the 2nd lap is because I went through the enduro section. Right now I'm going through the bypass, but literally this takes like 30 seconds. Going through the enduro section is at least half that amount of time, as long as you don't fall or get hung up on anything. You know, and in a race like this, where every second counts, 10-20 seconds makes a big difference for every lap, you know, the enduro section really makes up for it. So a couple years ago, they had a 2-hour Hare Scramble and a 3-hour Hare Scramble. When I first started, I raced the 2-hour Hare Scramble, and my last 2 years, or 3 years or so, I was doing the 3-hour Hare Scramble. What was kind of fun about the 3-hour, besides it being really hard and long, is towards the end of the race, when everybody else is kind of wrapping up their race, you almost have the entire course to yourself. So, you know, you're basically out there, and there's really no other riders except for the 3-hour people. And most people do the 2 hours, so therefore you got all this free trail ride time. But kind of as it works out right now, a lot of times these races end up being 3 hours anyways. it's kind of funny, the whole woo woo thing. I don't really hear guys doing that too much anymore, but when I first started doing Hare Scramble, I got wooed quite a bit because I was slower. And I don't know, just something I picked up on. It's a friendly thing rather than saying move. I'd rather woot somebody than tell them to get out of my way. But yeah, you can see, he's doing great. Looks like he's just a little slower than me, so I'm just trying to get by him. But I don't necessarily want to try to pass him in this stuff because we'll probably injure each other. There we go, he's going to let me by now. Now I can jet. And to better explain, why I do that, you can see how quickly I'm catching up to this guy. So this guy's probably in a similar class as the rider that I just passed. Just courtesy. If you're a little faster, nothing worse than being stuck behind somebody that's, a few steps slower than you. There are a lot of people hung up on those two logs. Yeah, this section was super fun. It was kind of like an off-camber, single track. GoPro really doesn't show it, but it was a pretty steep hill going down sideways, and if you got off the trail a little bit, you're probably going down the hill too. There's a section up here where the rider in front of me bunny hops off of a rock. I thought it was the cool thing, looking back at the footage. Actually, it was back there. Down the hill we go. Smack the handlebar. Alright, a little bit of throttle. Alright, so overall this is about lap 1.5 of 6 laps, and it was a really great race. It was worth the trip. It was about a 4-hour drive to get there. Really happy, we went. It was perfect conditions, blue sky, wasn't dusty. It was just a good time overall. Generally all the riders are super awesome. Everybody, has a good time. And overall, Hare Scramble is a fairly safe sport. You generally don't see many people getting hurt doing Hare Scrambles. Alright, when in doubt, throttle it out. Alright, go around to 3 guys. There we go. Picked up a couple more positions. Alright, chirp chirp. Gnarly trail. This area right here too looks flat, but man, there were some whoops right here. So alright everybody, I guess this video is about to come to a close. The GoPro ran out of juice here in the next little bit, and it's all the footage that I have, but more or less wanted to share what I had at Whiskey Creek. Like I said, super fun track. I believe they have another race at the end of summer. I think they promised a little bit more length instead of 7 miles, maybe another mile or 2 would be awesome, but 7 miles, is, I think, perfect for me, because I was able to remember a lot of the various areas and features and things to avoid. Kind of like little traps that get you in trouble, make you fall over, get stuck. A lot of fun. Starting to see a lot more people just on the second lap here. A lot of people getting tired, maybe getting heat exhaustion. I know there was a period in the race where I started feeling kind of hot and cold, and I had to recognize that. But never stopped. I just kind of kept going. I would just pace myself, I just want to thank everybody for watching. Everyone who got through the end of this video. Hopefully it was okay. Been a while since I edited a video, so it's not perfect, but hopefully you enjoyed and had maybe a few takeaways. Hopefully I'm not babbling too much, but hopefully you enjoyed the footage. Thanks everybody.